Now, I'm going to ask if you have any questions. You don't have to. Daniel. You see, I didn't need you to raise a hand, did I? It's your face. Do you know that?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Besides that, I used to teach junior high.
So I'm the student now and then?
It's called everything we ever did in life we started doing in junior high.
Oh. Well, I was thinking a lot about what you were saying in terms of special populations. Does it require somebody to be already a part of that special population in order to talk to them?
No. It just takes somebody who is willing not to judge that special population. So, for example, if you are anybody here from Hawaii? No. Hawaii had a leper colony on Molokai. And they had a Dutchman named Damien who worked with them. Was Damien a leper? Not at the beginning. At the end he was. But at the beginning, no. Did he work with them? Yes. Why? Because he was one with them. He was there willing to learn from them. He didn't go to help them. God help us from good do-gooders, right? But he went to be with them and to learn from them. And as a result, they worked. That was anybody. Anybody. You don't speak Spanish? Go work with a Mexican group. It doesn't matter. If you have a good heart and you care about them, guess what? They're going to think you are incredible because you took the courage to walk into the room without speaking that language and to tell them that you care about them. So, you know. Yes, Tori or Toby? Tori. I'm sorry.
It's okay. My doctor called me Tony for the first time in my life. So, I have a question kind of for you and for Bob and Sheri. In the data-driven society that we're in and applying for grants and stuff to make this a reality in our own communities, do you guys collectively have that data and where consumers who went through this leadership program are now that we can access so that when we go back to our own communities, we can write grants and show the positive outcomes that are coming from it?
I know, Bob, somebody from your center called me once to get data.
Centers that are participating are, as you could see, collecting their own data, but we're also supplying that information to Bob, so you can talk about that, Bob.
Given information to others who have applied for the grant, the lady in Kansas, we not only that, we give you the grants that we've applied for before so you can see what we've written. And yeah, I mean, we don't have perfect data on it because some people will leave and never contact us, but we have a good chunk of it.
Michael, I just wanted to add in, is that the next step beyond, because you could see some of the outputs that Michael listed up there as far as what kinds of commissions and boards and advisory councils that our graduates are participating in, but we also need to start talking about the outcomes and the impact of their work. And so that's the next level. And I know one of the ongoing grant sponsors over the last several years that has helped us move in that direction, is giving us some guidance, is actually Catholic Charities. We've gotten some funding from them. And any of the organizations or foundations that do funding for advocacy work, this is a perfect fit for that. Sometimes it's hard to get money to do advocacy work, but there are organizations out there that will fund specifically advocacy efforts. I don't know if you want to share anything else on that.
Sorry. It's in Catholic Charities, it's their campaign for human development. It's a national campaign, okay? You do not have to be Catholic to apply for it. We apply for it as an independent living center. But they have certain requirements that anybody who is a practical individual is going to really like. They don't want theory. They want action items with an outcome that can be evaluated and quantified. So, like with our Dublin, Pleasanton, Livermore, Danny group, we put in, we're going to have, I can't remember how many, I think it's 15 youth go through the academy, and of that academy graduates, 2 of them will join boards, 6 of them will become members of the Danny group, and I think we said 3 or 4 are going to go to the Disability Capital Action Day. It shows that things actually came, because the Campaign for Human Development sees itself as seed money. We do not fund ongoing projects, but rather new projects, and we'd like to do it for once, and that once happens, you become independent and self-sufficient. So at the end of ours, we have a Danny group, right? Now, maybe next year we say in the same location, we'd like to add a Dan group. Well, that's a different outcome, isn't it? And you can go and apply for money for that. Roger.
Hi, it's Roger. Can you hear me?
Oh, Robert. Oh, I'm sorry.
Roger. Okay, so my question is, where and how do you do the recruitment for the academy?
I'm going to ask you, Roger. Maybe you did to this. Did you come to this workshop because you read a flyer or got an email?
It was through email.
It was through email. How many people came here because somebody you know suggested it? The majority of us. Most of us are not going to join anything because we get an email. You're the unusual person. I want to know you really well. Okay? But most of us go to something because somebody we know invited me. That includes fundraisers and parties and all those types of things. We get an invitation, right? And so what we did is we invited. A lot of our first group were from our Dan group, who were already involved in advocacy, and we said, you want to build on that experience and structure it more, and so we individually invited them. And it's, I would say, invitation primarily. Tori?
Question.
It's all right.
Age range. What age range are you looking at, or what age range do you guys focus on?
16 up. Because we want somebody who can get into the advocacy work, and sometimes mother and father say no, you know, but what do you do? But we had our young graduate, her mother came with her and got really involved, loved it. I just thought, great. Anyone else? Thank you so much for listening. And Paula, do I turn it back to you? I'll see, or is it me?
The floor is yours.
Oh, it's mine. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, God, the floor is mine. Oh, all right. Now, this is where we're going to find out something that becomes really weird. Because people have different definitions of leadership. For example, some people think Vladimir Putin is a good leader. They do. But it is a style, isn't it? Yeah. It is. It is. Or some people will say instead that, you live in Arizona, don't you? The heat's gotten to you. It's happened. Well, I'm just charging now. You see, yes. But you take somebody like Gandhi. Is he a leader? God, why was he a leader? Why? He stood up and successful and not afraid to speak up and why? Trustworthy. He was, what you saw was what you got, right? Okay. He walked the walk, he just didn't talk the talk. What we want to do is ask ourselves, in terms of leadership, in your small groups, I'm going to give you 5 minutes for this. What are notions you have of the way to develop leaders? How would you say we can go about doing that? Everybody understand the question? How do we develop, encourage, inspire leaders? And you have to have an idea, otherwise you'll never work with leadership, on leadership development. Because how can you do it if you don't have an idea of how to do it, right? All right, go to it. Back together again. Isn't this wonderful? And we're going to have an initial ground rule. And the initial ground rule is only people who have not raised their hands and spoken since lunch can speak now. You know, Daniel, even with your hands under your legs, your face still shows it. But you can have Alex say what you want her to say. Okay, so what I'm going to ask you is, what ways did we say we might be able to develop leaders? How do we develop leaders? What did we come up with? Come on, yes.
Our table said that you have to model good leadership skills, and you also have to provide the chance to fail and let people realize that's not the end of the world.
Absolutely. You know, one of our biggest problems, I think especially with our young people, is we don't allow them to fail while they're in the first grade. And as a result, when they do fail, they're 35 and they have 3 kids. And then what do you do when this is their first time they've been allowed to fail? But to allow somebody in a safe environment to learn how to cope with failure is just an incredible gift. So thank you very, very much. Someone else. And tell me what you mean by doing that. Can you use the microphone?
Just giving other people the opportunity to have input, you know, without criticizing it.
Excellent. I can tell you how important that is. You know, if you're scared and because you're afraid that somebody's going to think what you just said was not worthwhile, and you get up all the courage you've ever had for the last 15 years, and you say something, then you get shut down, guess what's going to happen for the next 15 years? You're going to shut right down again. So thank you. Yes. Matthew.
I think. Good? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just giving them the chance to lead and letting them know that their voice is just as important as anyone else's voice. And I know with me, when I first started working at the SIL, I was very passive. I'd let other people speak, and I'd just sit around, and someone would say what I wanted to say, and I'd be like, oh, they touched on it. And I was always told to speak up and be, not forceful, but be assertive in what I'm saying, and just know that what you have to say is just as important as anyone else's in the room.
Absolutely. And just remember, there's a big difference between assertiveness, which is really good, and aggressiveness, which is really bad. Okay, so you know, we don't want to be aggressive, but we do want to be assertive. Anyone else? Yes.
I have the list from our table. So a few of the things that we came up with were teaching disability history and sort of the path to access laws so that people feel empowered and part of a movement. And also having sort of different levels of victory, so working with them first on like small victories and then moving on to like medium victories in terms of advocacy and then larger victories.
And Ellie back there has a wonderful example. Maybe Ellie, can you use this microphone about your friend at the restaurant? And it's a wonderful example of what...
Actually, I speak loud enough. Who needs them? Hi, I was eating lunch with a friend at a restaurant that had been open maybe a week or two. And she's a large woman, and so she uses the disability stall because it fits her size. And unfortunately, this new bathroom, when they had the changing table in it as well, so you know, mom can go in with her infants and change diapers and stuff. And they had left the tray down, or whatever they call that part. They left it down, and she had to struggle to get into the disability stall. And when we were leaving, she came out. She finally came out of the restroom, and she's grumbling, rah, 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 rah. And she goes, "I don't know if I'm ever going to come back here, you know, because when the tray is down or the table's down, you can't get into the disability stall. And I said, wait a minute, you know, let's. So we were checking out at this time, and I spoke to the clerk, or the cashier, and I said, is the manager available? And so she went and got the interim manager because the restaurant had only been open a couple of weeks. And I explained the situation to him, and he took, you know, because I said all you had to do was make the door from an innie to an outie. So you pulled the door open instead of pushing it in. And that would take care of the problem if the tray is down or up, you know, it makes it easier for anybody to be able to get into the disability stall. Anyways, so she was ready never to go back to this restaurant ever again because of that difficulty. And then we've been back there several times since, and that problem has indeed been rectified, and therefore she's able to get into the stall as she needs.
We really do need to have access to things, right? And just be able to do that. And I'm sorry, I don't know. Is it Mandy? Maddie, were you finished? Okay, all right. Anyone else? Yes, Catherine.
I just wanted to hello? I just wanted to share that in multicultural settings, it's important to know what the different definitions of leadership are, because in white Western cultures, speaking up, being assertive is very, very important. But in other cultures, sometimes it's the leader who speaks last, and the person who makes sure that everyone in the room has a chance to speak if they're comfortable is the greatest sign of leadership.
Yes, absolutely. It's going to be fun that we're going to be living in such a diverse, multicultural society. I think it is, you know. I love the foods itself. As you can see, I've missed many a meal in my life. Anyone else? Yes, Chad.
I believe it's important for a leader to not just have a vision, but also they have to be realistic.
Yes. Don't be so far ahead that nobody can follow. You know, it's really, really important. And a vision is important. Because if you don't have a vision, anybody here read the novelist Elie Wiesel? He wrote lots of wonderful books. One of them is called Night, but it's about the Holocaust experience that he survived. But one of them is, In the Woods or something. I can't remember the name of it right now. And he starts it off with an understanding of story or vision. And his whole thing behind this is that a people without a story are not able to go forward. You have to have a story. You have to be able to know who you are and to be able to say that. That's why I love so much what Dolores does with the Disability History Week, because if you don't have a history, who are you? You're someone with amnesia, right? And the whole thing becomes is our young people need to understand that as people with disabilities, we have a story. And they can be part of that story and therefore move forward. All right, now, someone who talked before and wants to talk again. May. Go ahead, Daniel. Go ahead. We like you because you seem so happy all the time.
Thank you.
Are you?
I think so.
Oh, good.
It's an ambiguous. Well, the question is still definitions of leadership, and I kind of had two things that I talked about, but the first one was I used anger as a good motivator to step outside of someone's comfort zone, and Ron followed that up with passion is also something that is very strong. It moves somebody outside of their comfort zone, something they have a very vested interest in and something they're encouraged by. And so something that makes them step out of their comfort zone. And the second piece I did talk about was giving people roles. And as they take on those roles, they can kind of lead from those roles. By owning and seeing accomplishment in those roles, all of a sudden they can find that self confidence to stand up and take a more piece, a bigger piece next time.
Right. And one of the things that roles, you do this role, can you be the one who speaks here, is you really do have a role. You become an actor. And for most of us, acting is a way to get involved in becoming more expressive, because you're safe when you're acting, right? Because it's not really you. But all of a sudden it becomes you. And that's a great thing. How many are EDs here besides Bob and Jesse and Sheri? Any other EDs? Oh, and Ron. But he left. He left. Oh, good. Okay. Would I be correct in saying the ED does the jobs that nobody else on the staff wants to do? Sometimes, if push comes to shove, I've seen Sheri and Ron doing things and that's a real definition of a leader. You don't do things that you would not ask somebody else to do. Okay? You do it first. And that becomes really important, because then your staff or your group buys into to what you are doing, because you have also done it. That whole thing is, I remember I was at one job interview, and one of the interviewers asked me, would you be willing to step out of your office and help with an intake form? I said, of course. Why wouldn't you? And he said, because we know several people who won't. That's not my job. I don't do that. We hire people to take to the whole thing is a leader fits in where needed. That doesn't mean being codependent and taking over. It simply means when needed, sometimes we do fill in. Are we okay then?